All right, traders. So in this lesson, I'm going to be breaking down how comments work in PineScript. So comments are basically a way of leaving notes in your code for yourself or for other traders or coders who read your script. So right here, I have a blank indicator script using the default template that TradingView have created. And you can see two comments at the top here. These are automatically added to all scripts that you create through the Pine editor. This top comment here is saying that our source code is subject to the terms of the Mozilla public license. And here's a link to that license if you want to read what this means. Here's the license here. And just really quickly while we're here, I figure we might as well go over this, as I'm sure some of you are interested in what this means if you haven't seen it before. But basically, this just limits your liability as a coder. So it just says the covered software, which is our scripts, is provided under this license on an as-is basis without warranty of any kind. The entire risk as to the quality and performance of the covered software is with you, and you being the script user or anyone who uses your script basically is using your script at their own risk. Most open source software will operate under a license like this. And then next up we have our copyright. So this is a copyright, and then it will automatically insert your TradingView username here. Now both of these comments are not read by the PineScript compiler. What that means is when the engine that runs your script through the TradingView platform does its thing, it ignores these lines. It's like they don't exist. And this is all the compiler will see. In fact, we only see this. So these comments are really just for your eyes only. And the way you write them is with 2 forward slashes. You can put them anywhere. They don't need to be at the start of the line. They could be after the line. So I could say here, declare my indicator. Here we could say plot the close. And you can even use them to comment out code. So let's say we want to get the RSI here, 14 period RSI on the closing price. Let's say there's a problem with our code, or there's something we want to test and we want to temporarily remove this code without deleting it. We can just add 2 comments in front of it, and now this code is ignored by the compiler. So that is the purpose of comments, to leave notes to yourself. One other purpose, which we'll cover in future lessons, is what's called annotation comments. So this right here is a annotation comment. It's a special comment that is not ignored by the compiler, but technically isn't code. You could think of this as kind of like metadata, if you're familiar with metadata. So this is just telling PineScript that we want to work with version 5 of PineScript. If we get rid of this and compile our script, we're now dealing with the original version of PineScript, which had no version. And we're going to get all kinds of errors because of that, because the syntax of version 5 of PineScript is very different to prior versions. And by syntax, I just mean the grammar of the language. The way we express our code is different in version 5 than any other version. If I bring back that annotation comment and save the script, now it compiles just fine. So that's the purpose of comments. We'll be using them a lot in our scripts. I highly encourage you to comment your scripts heavily. It's always better to have too many comments than not enough comments. The reason for that is there will be times when you write a script and you'll come back to it weeks, maybe even months or years later, and you might not remember why you did things a certain way or why your code was written the way it was. Having comments can help remind you why you did what you did, and it can help other traders know what you're trying to do with your code as well. So if you're writing public open source scripts, I definitely encourage you to comment them. And it's just a good idea in general to get into a habit of commenting your code regularly and extensively so that you know what you're doing. And it's kind of like, if you remember in school, when you did math stuff, you always had to show your work. You needed to explain how you got to your answer. Comments are basically the same thing. Using comments can explain how you got to where you got to in terms of your solution in your code. If I open up a script I've been working on recently, which is my Zen library, you can see that this script has, I think, more comments in it than actual lines of code. In fact, it certainly does have more comments in it than actual lines of code. Now, that's not a normal thing. You wouldn't normally see that in most scripts. But because this is a library, and we'll get into libraries in future lessons, so I don't want to overwhelm you with too much information, but each comment here explains what each block of code does in great detail. The reason for this is that this library is designed so that I could give it to a complete stranger who knows nothing about me, who knows nothing about how I like to code, and they can work out exactly to a T what every single part of my code does. If I got rid of all of these comments, the code becomes significantly harder to read because there is no explanation on what is happening. If I get rid of all of these comments and we're just left with this is not useful to most traders. Most traders will see this and they'll just move on to a different script because no one has the time to reverse engineer and deconstruct exactly what this code does. But by having all these comments, suddenly this script is much easier to read for anyone who is unfamiliar with what the code does. So that's the purpose of comments. We'll be using them a lot throughout the course. So as I said before, it's a good idea to get into a habit of using them. But don't worry, you'll see lots of examples of how to use comments in your code in future lessons. So if this doesn't quite make sense to you, don't worry, it will by the end of the course. See you in the next lesson.